Most people believe that working harder is the safest and most honest way to improve their financial life. They believe effort automatically leads to progress. That belief feels right, but it is exactly what keeps many people stuck for years. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Hard work by itself does not make you wealthy. In fact, for many people, it quietly locks their income in place. They work longer hours, they take on more responsibility, they say yes more often, yet their financial situation barely changes. The mistake is not lack of effort. The mistake is believing that effort alone creates upward movement. It does not. Let's slow this down and look at the foundation. Hard work is not bad. Discipline matters. Consistency matters. Showing up matters. But hard work is a tool, not a strategy. When effort is placed inside the wrong structure, it produces exhaustion instead of progress. You feel busy all the time. You feel responsible, but financially, you stay in the same place. Most people earn money by trading time for pay. You work a certain number of hours, you receive a certain amount of money. This creates a natural limit. There are only so many hours in a day. No matter how motivated you are, you cannot create more time. That means your income has a ceiling built into it from the start. This is why people feel frustrated even when they are doing everything right. They show up early, they stay late, they work weekends, but every day resets. Yesterday's effort does not help today's income. You start from zero again. Over time, this becomes a treadmill. You move constantly, but you do not move forward. People are taught that consistency will solve this. Work hard long enough and things will change. But consistency inside a system that does not compound only creates stable struggle. It does not create growth. Now look at people who do escape this cycle. They are not working less. Often they are working just as hard. The difference is where their effort goes. Their work is connected to something that lasts, a skill that increases in value, a system that keeps running, something they own or control. Hard work without leverage disappears. Hard work with leverage builds. This is the first shift most people never make. They are taught to increase effort, not to change structure. They're taught to work harder, not to work towards something that grows. The thing that quietly replaces hard work as the main driver of results is leverage. Leverage allows effort to stack instead of vanish. That is the foundation everything else depends on. Now let's go deeper, because even after understanding this idea, most people still miss what is really happening underneath. When people hear that hard work keeps them poor, they often feel confused or even defensive. They think it means effort doesn't matter. That is not true. Effort matters, but the way effort behaves over time matters more. Most effort is temporary. When the effort stops, the results stop. That is the problem. Think about effort like energy that disappears once used. You work today, you get paid today. Tomorrow, you must start again. Nothing from yesterday carries forward. This is how time-based work functions. It feels productive at the moment, but it leaves no trace. Now compare that to effort placed into something that holds value, skills, systems, assets, processes. In those cases, effort stays. It accumulates. 1 hour today can still pay you back weeks or months later. The work does not vanish when you stop. Most people are never taught to think this way. They are taught that effort equals virtue, that working harder makes you deserving. But the financial world does not reward effort alone. It rewards leverage. It rewards positioning. It rewards outcomes that scale. This creates a painful situation. People who work extremely hard feel betrayed. They did what they were told. They followed the rules, but the rules were incomplete. No one explained that effort without compounding leads to stagnation. Another misunderstanding comes from the idea that hard things must be valuable. People assume that if work is difficult, it must pay well, but difficulty and value are not the same. Many of the hardest jobs are paid the least because they're easy to replace and impossible to scale. Leverage is quieter than hard work. It does not feel productive at first. It often looks slower. That is why people avoid it. Leverage requires patience. It requires thinking before acting. It requires accepting delayed results. Being busy feels safer. constant motion feels responsible. But busyness often hides a deeper fear, the fear of slowing down and asking whether this effort is actually building something. When you reframe effort this way, your priorities change. You stop chasing more hours. You stop measuring progress by how tired you are. You start asking a better question. If I stopped today, would any of this continue to work for me? Hard work that compounds feels boring at first, but over time, it creates separation. That separation is what changes financial outcomes.
Now let's talk about how this plays out in real life. Because understanding the idea is not enough. You need to see how it shows up day to day. Most people start their financial life focused on effort. They ask, what can I do today to earn money? So they take jobs that pay by the hour, or they take on extra shifts, or they stack side work that still trades time for cash. On the surface, this feels smart. Money comes in, bills get paid. But structurally, nothing changes. The first practical shift is learning to separate activity from progress. Activity is doing things that produce immediate money. Progress is doing things that increase future earning ability. Most people spend all their energy on activity and leave nothing for progress. This is where skills come in. Skills are one of the simplest forms of leverage, but not all skills compound. Some skills only work inside jobs. Others increase in value as you improve. Skills like communication, problem solving, creating systems, understanding how money flows. These skills travel with you. They stack. They make your future effort more valuable than your past effort. The mistake beginners make is expecting leverage to pay immediately. They learn something new and quit when it does not produce fast money. That is normal. Leverage usually pays later. That delay is what filters most people out. Another mistake is trying to do everything at once. They chase multiple paths. They scatter effort. Leverage requires focus, one direction, repeated effort in the same lane. That repetition is what creates momentum. Now let's slow this down further and talk about reality. Building leverage feels uncomfortable. There is often a period where income feels flat, or even worse. This is where emotional resistance kicks in. Doubt shows up. Fear shows up. People wonder if they are wasting time. This is why most people quit right before leverage starts working. They go back to what feels safe. More hours, more effort, more busyness. Even if it keeps them stuck, it feels familiar. Day to day, leverage looks quiet. Learning instead of earning for a few hours, building instead of rushing, saying no to short-term money to protect long-term growth. This feels risky when you start from zero, but staying trapped in time-based work is the bigger risk. This is the practical reality. Not dramatic, not exciting, just consistent placement of effort into things that last. Now let's step back and look at this from a higher level, because this is where the mindset finally locks in. Most people believe money changes their life because they see money as the reward. They think if they just earn more, everything else will improve. But income is only a side effect. The real change happens earlier, at the level of thinking and structure. Hard work keeps people poor because it trains them to focus on effort instead of control. When you rely only on effort, you give up control over outcomes. You depend on hours. You depend on approval. You depend on someone else's system. That creates stress, even if the paycheck is stable. Leverage quietly replaces hard work by shifting control back to you. When you build leverage, you decide where effort goes. You decide what compounds. You decide what matters. This reduces pressure over time instead of increasing it. A common objection is, not everyone can build leverage. That sounds logical, but it is false. Everyone already uses leverage. They just use someone else's. A job is leverage for the employer. Your time multiplies their system. The difference is ownership and direction. Another objection is fear. People think leverage is risky, but trading time for money is risky too. If you stop working, income stops. That is not safe. That is dependency. Leverage looks uncertain in the beginning, but it creates stability later. Now compare two paths. One path is working harder every year just to maintain the same lifestyle. More hours, more stress, more exhaustion. The other path is putting effort into something that slowly reduces required effort. The second path feels harder at first and easier later. The first path feels easier at first and harder forever. This is the contrast that matters. Hard work without leverage asks you to sacrifice more every year. Leverage asks you to think more up front so you can sacrifice less later. One path consumes you, the other frees you. This does not mean quitting your job tomorrow. It means changing where surplus effort goes. Instead of pouring everything into survival, you redirect some effort into building skills, systems, or assets that last. This is the quiet replacement. Not luck, not shortcuts, not motivation, structure. If this way of thinking makes sense and you want to keep building it step by step, subscribe. The next videos go deeper into how to apply this starting from zero, without hype and without shortcuts.